You've done this before. You're standing directly in front of someone you've definitely met before. Maybe twice, maybe 3 times. You recognize their face instantly. You remember the conversation. You remember where you met them. But their name, gone. Not on the tip of your tongue. Not hiding somewhere in your memory. Just completely missing, like the file was never saved. And suddenly the next 10 seconds become a strange little performance. You nod politely. You angle your body slightly. You hope someone else says their name first. Maybe their phone rings. Maybe someone interrupts the conversation. Anything that saves you from asking again. Most people think this means something bad about them. They think I'm terrible with names. I must not pay attention. Or worse, maybe I'm just socially awkward. But psychology suggests something surprising. Welcome to Intella. If you're interested in intelligent psychology, philosophy, science, economics, and history, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing, and if you enjoy this video, feel free to like and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's begin. For many people, forgetting names isn't a sign of carelessness. It's actually a side effect of a brain that's doing too much thinking at once. Because when you meet someone new, your brain is already overloaded. It's reading facial expressions, analyzing tone of voice, trying to understand the social situation, figuring out whether this person likes you and whether you like them. At the same time, your brain is preparing what to say next. All of this is happening inside something psychologists call working memory. And working memory is limited. Very limited. It can only hold a few things at once. So when someone says, "Hi, I'm Kevin," your brain hears the word. But it has no meaning yet. No associations. No emotional context. Just a random sound. And when the brain is overloaded, it prioritizes meaning over labels. So it stores the tone, the facial expressions, the emotional atmosphere, but the name quietly disappears. And strangely enough, psychologists discovered a paradox that explains exactly why names are so easy to forget. Once you hear it, you might never blame your memory again. In the 1980s, psychologists ran a simple experiment. Participants were shown a photo of a man. One group was told, "This man is a baker." Another group was told, "This man's last name is Baker." Same word, same face, same information. But days later, the results were dramatically different. People remembered the profession far more easily than the name. Even though the word was identical, psychologists now call this the Baker-Baker paradox. And it reveals something fascinating about human memory. When you hear the word baker as a profession, your brain activates an entire network of associations. You might imagine bread, flour, warm ovens early in the morning. The word connects to dozens of ideas already stored in your brain. But when baker is presented as a name, those connections don't activate. It becomes just a label, floating alone, with nothing to attach to. And the brain hates storing isolated information. It prefers meaning. Think about the last important event you attended. Maybe a wedding, maybe a funeral, maybe a family gathering. You probably remember the atmosphere, the emotions, maybe even the exact sentence someone said that stuck with you. But you probably don't remember every printed detail from the program. Because the brain stores experiences, not labels. Names are often just labels. Which is why you might remember everything about a person, except their name. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Because many people who forget names frequently aren't distracted. They're actually thinking too much during social interactions. And psychologists discovered a strange phenomenon that explains why. It's called the next in line effect. And once you understand it, you might suddenly recognize something about your own conversations. In 1973, researchers noticed something strange during group discussions. When people were waiting for their turn to speak, their memory for what the previous person said dropped dramatically. Not slightly, dramatically. Psychologists called this the next in line effect because while someone else was speaking, the listener's brain had already moved ahead. Instead of fully listening, they were preparing, planning their response, editing their words, predicting how others might react. Their attention shifted inward. Now think about what happens when someone introduces themselves. They say their name, but inside your mind another conversation might already be happening. Am I making enough eye contact? Was that handshake awkward? What should I say next? Did I interrupt them? Your brain becomes a running commentary, and that internal voice can easily overpower something simple, like a name. This happens especially often to people who are highly self-aware, or socially anxious, or naturally analytical. They aren't ignoring the conversation. In fact, they may be analyzing it more intensely than anyone else in the room. But attention is limited, and when the brain focuses inward, small details disappear. And unfortunately, names are among the least meaningful details in the interaction, so they vanish, which creates a strange misunderstanding. Many people think they have a memory problem, but in reality, they may have an attention allocation problem. Their brain was simply busy doing something else. And psychologists have noticed another surprising pattern about people who forget names easily. They often have extremely vivid memory in other areas. They remember stories, emotions, tiny details about conversations, which raises a fascinating possibility. Maybe their memory isn't weak. Maybe it's simply organized differently. Some minds store information like a filing cabinet, labels, categories, clear facts, but other minds work more like a web. Memories connect through emotions, images, meaning. Psychologists call this associative thinking. And people with associative minds often remember things others completely miss. They remember how someone laughed. They remember a story told years ago. They remember the emotional tone of a moment. But strangely, they may struggle to recall the person's name. Because while one mind stores the label, the associative mind stores the experience, and this kind of memory can be incredibly powerful. It supports creativity, storytelling, empathy, deep listening. People with associative memory often notice emotional signals others overlook. They recognize patterns in conversations. They remember how people felt. Ironically, this can make them extremely attentive listeners. Yet socially, they sometimes feel embarrassed about forgetting names, because society treats name recall as proof of attentiveness. But psychologically, that assumption is misleading. Memory is not a recording device. It's a prioritization system. Your brain constantly decides what deserves space. Emotion is stored quickly. Surprising moments are stored quickly. Meaning is stored quickly, but arbitrary labels often disappear. And once you understand that, something important becomes clear. Many people carry unnecessary guilt about forgetting names. But the truth is, their brain may have been paying attention to everything else. When someone forgets your name, it can feel personal. It can feel like a quiet message. You didn't matter enough to remember. But memory doesn't work that way. When someone forgets your name, they may still remember the entire interaction. They might remember the story you told, the unusual opinion you shared, the moment you both laughed. They might even remember details about your life. But the name never became deeply encoded, because the brain stored the experience instead. Human memory works more like impressionist art than a photograph. It captures emotions, atmosphere, moments, not every small detail. Of course, names can be remembered more easily with simple tricks. Repeating the name, connecting it to an image, associating it with someone you already know. But the quiet shame many people feel about forgetting names, that belief deserves to be questioned. Because memory differences aren't flaws. They're variations in how different minds organize the world. Some minds remember labels. Others remember people. And if you're someone who remembers stories, emotions, and experiences more vividly than names, it may reveal something interesting about how your brain works. Because sometimes, what looks like a weakness is actually a sign of a mind that is paying attention to deeper layers of human experience. And once you notice that, you may start seeing the psychology of memory in a completely different way. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to Intella for more insights on intelligence, psychology, philosophy, science, economics, and history. Let me know in the comments which part interested you the most. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.